Hi, I'm Bruce Hellman, CEO and one of the co-founders of uMotif. We're a UK-based digital health company helping patients to capture data for clinical research. Today, I'm going to be talking to you as part of the AWS day about digitizing clinical research and how this huge industry is going to be changed and is changing, all thanks to technology, largely driven by well-designed configurable cloud-based technology. In terms of uMotif, I founded the business back in 2012. We met originally two patients with Parkinson's disease, and we spoke to these people about how we could help them track and understand and manage their serious long-term condition using mobile apps that would help them feel more engaged and more empowered. Over the last 8 years or so, we've successfully delivered technology that's helped people get a better understanding through tracking their own health and well-being and quality of life on a regular basis, and use that data to not only improve their healthcare journey, but now increasingly to support new ways of undertaking research and capturing more data to deliver the sorts of new insights that can bring new drugs to market, help improve therapies, and shed light on how people live with various conditions. For us, it's hugely exciting, the opportunity to use new technology to really put patients more at the heart of clinical research and help researchers to undertake the sort of studies they've never been able to do before. So today I wanted to talk through some of our approach, some of the industry background that makes this such an exciting area, what we believe is the right way to approach things, which is designing fantastic technology for patients, and then touching on how we use the AWS cloud infrastructure to power our platform and to make us secure, robust, compliant, and very scalable as well. So what we've experienced over recent years is that this clinical research industry is one that really is changing. It's changing quickly, but it is also a very stable and mature industry. So where pharmaceutical companies, contract research organizations are running research studies, either clinical phase studies or real world late phase, we're seeing that increasing amounts of data have to be captured from patients, from very engaged patients. But the industry is facing some challenges. Much of the technical approaches are fairly old, actually. Still 3/4 of studies are run using paper or not capturing any data from patients at all, which is astounding that even today, many trials are not engaging patients using technology to capture data. Of the 1/4 of studies that are using electronic methods, we're seeing and hearing from many in the pharma and biotech industry that the technologies that they're having to use can be old, can be outdated, and that makes them slow to set up. It makes them difficult to configure. And then also the design approach is sometimes that places quite a high burden on the user. So we often find that patients have an experience which is lacking. It's not the same sort of quality that they would experience using other apps on their phone. And that creates difficulty in keeping patients engaged in capturing data. Because some of the technology isn't using the best of the latest cloud technologies, it can also be slow to set up, requiring customization every single time. And this is in a world where modern technology allows and should allow for things to be set up much more speedily using configurations of existing software. A big impact on the industry is around cost. That's cost in terms of using some of the older technologies, cost when paper is involved in having to transcribe data, deal with missing data, and then also the cost that's involved in providing patients with a device. Now, what's exciting nowadays is we're moving to an era of what's called bring your own device, where we can use the device that people have in their own pockets, their smartphone or their tablet, to be able to capture data themselves. So in this global industry where we're seeing that only 1/4 are really using digital technology, there's a huge amount that can be done to not only improve how sponsors run their studies, but do better, do more for patients and the other healthcare professionals and site investigators who are taking part and using the technology. So at uMotif, we've taken an approach to design and build scalable cloud-based technologies. I'll talk in a few moments not only about how we've taken that approach through to our platform, but also the AWS technologies that we're using to power our platform. One of the key things for us since we founded uMotif back in 2012 was always putting the user at the heart, thinking how can we design a technology that's really going to engage people and give them a great experience. It's through using that sort of approach that we've seen other industries engage their customers, their users, their consumers so effectively. It's a key thing that needs to happen in the research industry, where all of the technologies need to be designed and based around the needs of the end users. And using modern technology, we can ensure that not only are the systems secure and compliant, by building on existing and fantastic infrastructure, it means that we can get quicker to technologies that meet the regulatory requirements, that we can tick the box for things like 21 CFR Part 11, HIPAA, GDPR, the other sort of essential regulations around good clinical practice that are so necessary in our industry. It's important to use that technology to have that security and that compliance, but also using the modern technology to allow for simpler, quicker, easier, and smoother scaling. It allows for quicker configuration and that setup that can actually scale across studies from maybe just a couple of hundred patients to many, many thousands as well. And that scalable infrastructure is absolutely at the bedrock of what we see as the obvious future in clinical research, as it is in every other industry. It's leveraging the best of cloud to stay at the forefront of technology, not just today, but going forward. Many of the studies that we support are 3, 4, even 10 years long. We need to make sure that the technology we're providing for our clients today is still going to be relevant at each of those time points in the future. Basing things in the cloud and leveraging that technology stack allows us to do that and to avoid any technology obsolescence. Before I talk a bit more about our technology, I wanted to talk about our approach to how we're designing and building our technologies. What we often see, and this is not just the case in clinical research, but in other sectors too, we often see that people take a very data-centric or maybe the customer-centric approach. In clinical research, that means that often, for good reason, the sponsor thinks about the questions that they want to answer about a medication, a therapy, or a drug program. Then once those researchers thought about the question that they want to answer, they put together a protocol, then they identify the sites, work with healthcare professionals, and then for good reason sometimes people have thought about this flow and patients often come at the end of the process. Many of us have probably heard of examples of protocols designed that would create a fantastic amount of data to answer new research insights. But the difficulty with that protocol means that very few patients could possibly ever take part, and then those taking part would have incredibly high burden as well. So while that may be one approach, what we've always believed in is that it's much better and more effective to take a very patient-centric and human-centered approach. That means that maybe obviously we put the patient first. We think about how can we design an experience around the patient to give them something that will help on their healthcare journey, a study that they want to participate in and want to get the best out of. And by giving the patient a great experience of that study, we're then finding that that creates a great experience for the healthcare professional as well. And while it's important and essential to design technologies and a solution for the patient, it's also important to think about that clinical team, that research assistant as well. So by designing around the patient, we find that people have a better journey, they stick with their study. That then creates all of the data that's needed for the sites and eventually the sponsor. So the very important gold standard patient-reported outcome data and clinical outcomes assessment data comes as a consequence of a great journey. And if you base things in that context, what we find is both engaged patients, fewer dropouts, and potentially a huge amount of data captured from those patients as well. So the design thinking is really key, thinking about that patient first, bringing the best of consumer grade design into clinical research. And that's exactly what we've done over recent years with the uMotif platform. We've built a platform that is facing towards patients on the left-hand side of the first three boxes, and also for the site and the investigator professionals as well. So for patients, there's a fantastically engaging mobile experience where we can have people capture their outcome data, quality of life data, tailored for each study, so that people are capturing the right gold standard questionnaires at particular protocol-defined time points. In a study, in some slides presented at some conferences last year, we were seeing from the FDA up to, I think, around 50 to 60% of new drugs coming to market had patient-reported outcome data within that filing package. So it's really essential that people are asked to capture that data. And increasingly, we're seeing the importance of capturing symptom data as well. So engaging people to not only answer questionnaires, but also track how they're doing and their symptoms. Also connecting in wearable devices and in some cases capturing e-consent as well. So it's been essential to build a patient-facing experience with the data going seamlessly up to the cloud and then made available to the healthcare professionals and the investigators. So that may be capturing a clinician-reported questionnaire or outcome measure, may also be to allow the site professional to review how their patients are doing, how many are registered and complying with the study protocol, and what maybe the data is being captured as well. So those front-end applications are all built on secure, robust back-end technology. That's where we leverage the best of what AWS have to offer, so that we can build our technology, we can continue to scale it, and we can really make this platform something that's swift to deploy, but remembering to include always the right security and robustness. So in a bit more detail, what we're doing with AWS, well, the architecture is extremely scalable, and we're using Amazon Elastic Container Service and Fargate to run our containers. We've got Docker images for each application. Now they're stored in a private Elastic container registry. What's important for us is that this allows us to deploy really fast and scale quickly when our traffic increases. And it is also going to allow us to configure and deploy studies in a very consistent and secure manner. In the clinical trial industry, compliance and regulation are paramount, and it's really important that we have the validated system that can be completely consistent for many different types of study. This infrastructure allows us to do this. In terms of security, something that's key, the only public exposure point of our stack is the application load balancer, which is sending requests to a private application container or the application containers, and the rest of the stack is completely isolated. Importantly, it's not externally accessible, so we're building in and designing in the top level of security that we can. So in terms of that security and our auditing, we've also we're configuring using global CloudTrail, config rules, detective and guard duty, and our infrastructure is sitting inside a virtual private cloud, and it's the access to our relational database service is controlled by the AWS identification and access management services. So on this infrastructure, we're getting all of that scalability. The final thing probably to mention on this slide is just that we've got a series of API endpoints for each study, which some of those have to be publicly available, but we're protecting those using the web application firewall product. And this provides an easy way to configure the managed rules, and they're designed to block out viruses and malicious attacks as well. So it's an exciting set of infrastructure that we've put together, and the AWS stack allows us to do that in a very simple and fast way. But really importantly for our industry, it's that level of robustness and compliance which makes all of the difference to us. So where do we see this being applied? And I talked about scale a few moments ago. Some of our studies might only be 50 people, 100 people, because some research just needs to be on very small groups. But also, we're increasingly seeing that cloud-based technologies can be used to power research at an entirely different scale, a scale which is a lot larger than may have been seen before in this industry. Just one example of this was a study we undertook with the University of Manchester in the UK. This was all about asking people, does the weather affect your pain? So it was a lovely name of the study, Cloudy with a Chance of Pain. So it was a large-scale study where we asked thousands of people, in fact, over 13,000 participated. We asked people to download the uMotif application, to provide their consent, capture a series of regular symptom data and other questionnaires to help answer that question. We had people from every postcode in the UK taking part. We had over 5,000 joining on the first morning, and collectively it was over 5.5 million data points captured, which was a phenomenal amount of data that powered Professor Will Dixon and his team at University of Manchester to crunch the numbers and in fact find out that there is an association and there's more pain on humid and windy days with low atmospheric pressure. It was really exciting for us to be involved in a study that was at that level of ambition and the amount of data that was captured. The results of this study were published in Nature last year, and so it was wonderful to be able to use our tech to support something at scale. Perhaps even more exciting than the data was how much people loved using the technology. And again, this comes down to the point I was making about designing technology for people that happens to also capture gold standard data to answer research questions. And it's only by designing and building an experience which is engaging and that people want to keep coming back to that we can hope to capture this quantity of data over an extended period. So what we're seeing on this graph here is it gives us an overview of how people took part in the study. Now, each of the rows is a single study participant, and broadly on the left-hand side of the graph, we can see the study period. We can see that 5,000 people joining in one morning, as shown by the pretty much vertical line on the left. There's some cohort effects going vertically, but what we can see on the left-hand side, the density of data shows that thousands of people were capturing data every single day for 6 months, which was a phenomenal level of engagement. That came because the technology was simple and easy, and it helped answer a very important and insightful research question. Now, what was really exciting for us is that at the end of the study, this had already been agreed in the ethics committee approval. We said to people, if you want to continue using the application, not to take part in the study, but to use it for your own purposes, you will be free to do so. And what we can see on the right-hand side is after the study closed, many people continued using the application because they felt that this was not only a great tool to contribute to the research study, it was also something that they found useful themselves. Now, this is so useful to some patients. We've had people using this now for over 1,300 consecutive days, which is a phenomenal level of engagement. All of that data helping that individual to get a better insight into their health journey and well-being, and then also the potential to capture all of that data to unlock new research insights has been phenomenal. So it's really exciting to see that come together, and we have a number of other case studies of how the technology can be used to capture outcome data. It can be used in conjunction with things like a Fitbit, a wearable, an actigraph to capture data, and also used alongside things like blood spot sampling and other kind of lab results. As a whole, our solution combined with others can be used to power what's called a decentralized or virtual trials experience, where the person doesn't have to go into the site, into a hospital. They can undertake the study procedures from their home. This is ever more important in the COVID-19 crisis and thereafter, where increasingly we'll see more of these types of research studies run from home and engaging patients. Just one quick visual on how we have actually done that. This is what we call our Motif interface. It's an interface where people can track up to 10 items on a regular basis simply by swiping their finger in and out and giving themselves a score on a 1 to 5, what's called a Likert scale, regularly. So just as you can see in this demo here, as we swipe, it's very simple, very easy, and people can subjectively score themselves. Now, once that data is captured, not only does the patient get to view their data and look at the graphs of how they're doing. They also have that quick, easy way to contribute to the research study. So overall, we've over the last 8 years or so, we've delivered to engage thousands and tens of thousands of patients to be able to power new research insight and excitingly new study designs in this virtual and decentralized trial case. This spans more than 20 different clinical conditions, from diabetes, rheumatology, oncology, cardiology, and others. The most important thing for us is always bearing in mind two things. One, let's build some technology that people want to use. Let's make sure that the design is strong, that it's compelling, engaging, bright, and beautiful. And at the same time, make sure that the back-end infrastructure is using the best of cloud, that it can scale quickly, that it remains secure, robust, and compliant in all cases, and that by combining those two, that we can really empower the types of research of the future, which will involve more and more patients, and together we can make more of a difference for this very exciting industry. If you have any questions, I'd be delighted to answer them, and thank you for your time.